Hello and welcome to another Cliff Reviews Art House. This time I'm reviewing The Substance, directed by Coralie Fargeat. Wow, I thought this film was an amazing cinematic experience. Breathtaking, original and really creative. Totally compelling and immersive. Horrific, socially and politically devastating, and even humorous. It's a bold, visceral body horror film. It addresses themes such as vanity, aging, beauty standards, and Hollywood's treatment of women. I'm going to be very surprised if this isn't in my top 10 for the year. In fact, it's going to be fighting for first place, possibly in my all-time top 10 list. It's that good. This is a true horror film. Now, I always say that I'm not a fan of horror, but the truth is that there are actually quite a few horror films that I do like. This is definitely an extreme body horror movie. It has some of the most extreme horror that you'll ever see. But I'm okay with it. In fact, I really enjoyed the horror elements of the film. The horror's a metaphor with real depth in terms of body dysmorphia, self-hatred, lack of acceptance around aging. There's also a significant element of humour in it. I know that I've emphasised that this is extreme horror, but I want to emphasise it even more. Oh my God, this is full-on horror at the most extreme end in terms of what I've ever seen. Let's just put aside the fact that this is a horror. This is just great filmmaking. I found it absolutely thrilling, breathtaking, audio and visually, absolutely stunning. It's not often that a film grabs you, becomes a full-on body and mind experience, but this film certainly did that. I found myself smiling throughout, marvelling at the sheer mastery of it. And this is only her second film. I haven't seen Revenge, but I'm going to watch this as soon as possible. I'd love to see more of her work. The opening scene is just stunning. A sky blue colour block with an egg on it. The egg is injected and a second yolk pops out of it. It's aesthetically so compelling, and it's actually telling you quite a lot about what's going to happen in the film. Visually, the film is just aesthetically outstanding. It's a real work of art. It's really hard to describe why, but it just constantly surprises and thrills. It's filmed in a kind of surreal way with lots of close-ups on faces, angles that really distort and never really let you settle. There's a real fluidity. It's just completely thrilling. The colours are really bold and bright and clean. The sets are mostly kind of clinical, kind of minimalist, and all of this contrasts with the surreal and grotesque imagery that we get to see. There is sometimes a delicacy to the images. We see a fly in a drink and it's beautifully shot, but for a lot of the time, Coralie is ramping everything up to a full-on binge of the senses. And then she's ramping it up even more. It almost takes you to places that you couldn't imagine a film taking you. It's really that impressive. And the film is so tactile and visceral. You really feel what you're seeing. It's probably the most squidgy film that I've ever seen. Every time there's an opportunity for a squidgy sound with a body or an object, the film really emphasises it. I really, really like this. The film works on your senses and almost takes control. By the time she has a car crash, I really jumped, and I hardly ever jump in films. My body had become so sensitised, my perceptions so heightened that I felt every single thing that I was seeing and hearing. It's like a real ASMR experience. Absolutely brilliant filmmaking, a real work of art. The sound is so important to the film. Everything in this film is exceptional, and the sound is too. But it's absolutely critical to the experience, the sound. Again, just masterful. The sound completely works away at us throughout the film. It's full on, loud noises, often abrasive and jarring. Hard to describe, sounds like industrial-like sounds, distorted, pulsating tones. The sound design builds from subtle, almost hypnotic layers to aggressive bursts of noise that really emphasize the grotesque transformation scenes being revealed before our eyes, and of course representing the character's internal turmoil. The sound really creates a feeling of unease, and I think this really reinforces the body horror elements. They're mechanical sounds, they're organic, they create real instability both for the characters in the film and for the viewer. There are times when there's an alarm or a drill going in the background, totally irrelevant to the story, but just working away at us all the time. I wouldn't describe the sound as conventional music, but at the same time, the whole film feels like it's accompanied by a music score. There's a real rhythm to the soundscape. This is really emphasised by the fact that the sound will suddenly jump into a heavy beat, techno-style music track. I felt the urge to move my head in time with the beat often. That's how engaged the sound had me. The sound in the climax scene was so loud that it set off the loud noise notification on my Apple Watch. This doesn't normally happen in the cinema. I don't think it was too loud, but it was full on. The film is full of influences and references. I'm sure that I missed many of the horror references, but I thought of Cronenberg's Scanners and The Fly, Kubrick's The Shining and 2001, Frankenstein, Elephant Man, Alien, Jekyll and Hyde, even the TV series Severance. Hitchcock, I love the little music nod to Vertigo in the film. It just worked so well. There's so many references, but the film never ever felt derivative or it didn't feel overdone. This is amazing, actually. To say that it's not overdone is a real credit to the filmmaking, because it kind of is overdone. At times the film is just a pure binge, but it's done with such care and attention, I think. It's a filmmaker that really knows how to affect her audience. In terms of the theme, it is a devastating critique of society's unrealistic beauty standards and a critique of Hollywood's treatment of women after a certain age. The film's politics are not subtle, but the combination of horror, satire, humour, it all works perfectly. The politics are obvious, the message is relentless, but it never stops being powerful. I have heard some people critique the repetitiveness of the switch between Elizabeth and Sue. For me, it was just perfect. I loved the conflict that starts to emerge between the different parts of herself. The story actually is gripping, I found. I haven't yet commented on the acting. The casting was just perfect. Demi Moore plays the part so well. For me, this is an Oscar-winning performance, though whether the Academy would allow such a gory film near the major awards remains to be seen. Dennis Quaid and Margaret Qualley are both perfectly cast too. The men in this film are extreme caricatures, especially the Dennis Quaid character. Again, over the top, but never spoiling the politics of the film, really emphasising it. The one thing that I am wondering about at the end of the film is why we see such sexy shots of Margaret Qualley's body. Coralie is a feminist, and so obviously she's not intending for this to be titillating, but it definitely kind of represents the male gaze. It's interesting this. It is certainly the case that the images are hyper-stylized and exaggerated, and they are exhibited within an extremely toxic situation, so you would think this wouldn't make them titillating. At the same time, I think she's playing with men in this situation. As a heterosexual man, it's almost impossible to not notice Margaret Qualley's body in these scenes. But it's hardly a situation where we can be comfortable enjoying the images, giving everything that's happening in the film. It is subversive and radical, I think, and it has similarities to what Ninja Thyberg does in the film Pleasure about the Hollywood porn industry. This is aesthetically and sonically a masterpiece. It's audacious, it's over the top, it's a fantastic audio-visual experience. It has a solid politics that definitely can't be missed. And at the same time, it's great fun. I'm definitely going to see it at least one more time on the big screen. It's such brilliant filmmaking that it definitely deserves multiple viewings. Not only do I highly recommend this film, it's an absolutely must see, unless of course you literally can't watch gore and blood. If that's the case, this definitely isn't a film for you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.